Hare Krishna. We continue reading from Caitanya Caritamrita Adi-Lila, chapter 7. We are hearing the glories of the Panchatattva. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. So we read from text 38, Sabha Nishtarite Prabhu Kripa Avatar, Sabha Nishtarite Kare Chaturi Apar. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared in order to deliver all the fallen souls. Therefore, he devised many methods to liberate them from the clutches of Maya. So we have been reading that how Lord Chaitanya wanted to inundate the entire world with love of God. He is God himself and only he can give his love to everyone. And how Srila Prabhupada is following in the footsteps in the mood of Lord Chaitanya to give this love of God to everyone and anyone, irrespective of what is one's qualification or disqualification. So it is the concern of an Acharya to show mercy to the fallen souls. In this connection, Desh Kal Patra, the place, the time, and the object should be taken into consideration. Since the European and American boys and girls in our Krishna consciousness movement preach together, less intelligent men criticize that they are mingling without restriction. In Europe and America, boys and girls mingle unrestrictedly and have equal rights. Therefore, it is not possible to completely separate the men from the women. However, we are thoroughly instructing both men and women how to preach, and actually they are preaching wonderfully. Of course, we very strictly prohibit illicit sex. Boys and girls who are not married are not allowed to sleep together or live together, and there are separate arrangements for boys and girls in every temple. Grihast live outside the temple, for in the temple, we do not allow even husband and wife to live together. The result of this are wonderful. Both men and women are preaching the gospel of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Krishna with redoubled strength. So Srila Prabhupada is saying that Lord Chaitanya's mood is what? He wants to give love of Godhead to everyone. And as an Acharya, one has to go according to time, place, and circumstance. That the details can be changed according to time, place, and circumstance, but never the principles. The principles can never be compromised. But the details may be a little different. That's okay. So before Srila Prabhupada went to America, the women, it was unheard of for women to get initiation, to do preaching, to do deity worship. But when Srila Prabhupada, when he went to the West, he saw that men and women, they have equal rights. So he could not say, oh no, I will preach only to the men and not to the women. No, he said he had to preach to everyone, men and women, because the society is such. But he made sure the principle is being followed, that in the temple, even if you're married, you have separate living arrangements, separate ashram. So in this word, the words Sabha Nishtarite Kare Chaturi Apar indicate that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to deliver one and all. So this we should understand and have. We should try to feel fortunate of the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. He's saying he wants to give love of God to all of us. He's not saying that love of God is only for certain caliber of people or certain people who are learned or who have studied certain scriptures or are born in certain families. No, he's saying irrespective of our qualification or disqualification, he wants to deliver each and every one of us. So therefore, it is a principle that a preacher must strictly follow the rules and regulations laid down in the Shastras, yet at the same time devise a means by which the preaching work to reclaim the fallen may go on with full force. So Srila Prabhupada is saying that a preacher, an acharya, he needs to follow the rules and regulations, the principles very strictly, but understand the mood is to give Krishna consciousness to everyone. And in that way, he could change some details, but never the principle. The principle can never be changed. The principles are there in the Shastras and they have to be followed. So, and the idea is to follow the mode of Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya wants to bring all of us back. Imagine if Srila Prabhupada wouldn't have gone to the West and he wouldn't have translated the books in English, where would we be? You know, if he would have said, no, it's only for a certain people born in certain families and not for everyone, where would we be? You know, we wouldn't know anything. So, tabe nija bhakta kaila yatamelecha adi sabe edaila matra kashi ramayavadi. All were converted into devotees of Lord Chaitanya, even the Malechas and Yavanas. Only the impersonal followers of Shankaracharya evaded him. In this verse, it is clearly indicated that although Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu converted Muslims and other Malechas into devotees, the impersonalist followers of Shankaracharya could not be converted. After accepting the renounced order of life, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu converted many karmanishtas who were addicted to fruitive activities, many great logicians like Sarvabhauma Bhattacharyas, Nindakas, blasphemers like Prakashananda Saraswati, Pasandis, non-devotees like Jagai and Madai, and Adhama Paduyas, degraded students like Mukunda and his friends. All of them gradually became devotees of the Lord. Even the Pathans, Muslims, but the worst offenders, the impersonalists, were extremely difficult to convert, for they very tactfully escaped the devices of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he wanted to give love of God to everyone. And that's how he was converting, no matter who the person is. Is he a blasphemer? Is a non-devotee? Is a nindaka? Is a karmanishta, is just a logician. He was giving love of Godhead freely. But then there was a certain class of people called impersonalists. They were avoiding to receive the mercy of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They were avoiding because they were tactfully escaping Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In describing the Kashiram Mayavadis, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur has explained that persons who are bewildered by empiric knowledge or direct sensual perception and who thus consider that even this limited material world can be gauged by the material estimations conclude that anything that one can discern by direct sense perception is but Maya or illusion. They maintain that although the absolute truth is beyond the range of sense perception, it includes no spiritual variety or enjoyment. So there are certain class of people, they say, okay, yes, we understand that we cannot approach the spiritual world by our mind. Okay, we understand that I'm limited. I understand I can't approach the spiritual, but the spiritual has no variety. But that makes no sense. If I'm accepting that if I have no access to the spiritual because of my limited material, because of my material limitations, then how can I put a condition that the spiritual has no variety? You know, so they're just refuting their own self. It's completely illogical. Because if I accept, oh, I am limited and therefore I can't approach the spiritual, so I don't know anything about the spiritual, so I should be honest enough to understand, yes, I don't know anything about the spiritual. So when I'm hearing the spiritual is full of variety, I should accept it. Not that think, oh, because I cannot understand anything of the spiritual, so the spiritual has no variety. Then I'm just being obstinate and foolish. According to the Kashira Mayavadis, the spiritual world is simply void. They do not believe in the personality of the absolute truth. or in his varieties of activities in the spiritual world. Although they have their own arguments which are not very strong, they have no conception of the variegated activities of the absolute truth. These impersonalists who are followers of Shankaracharya are generally known as Kashira Mayavadis, impersonalists residing in Varanasi. So there is this certain group of people, they say, okay, I understand that because I'm limited, my material capacity is limited, so I can't approach the spiritual, but the spiritual is without variety. It's just nothing there. It's just nothing. Again, it makes no sense. Because if I accept I don't know something, then I also have to accept that my conclusion could be wrong. So, reading on, near Varanasi, there's another group of impersonalists who are known as Sharanath Mayavadis. Outside the city of Varanasi is a place known as Sharanath, where there is a big Buddhist stupa. Many followers of Buddhist philosophy live there, and they are known as Sharanath Mayavadis. The impersonalists of Sharanath differ from those of Varanasi, for the Varanasi impersonalists propagate the idea that the impersonal Brahman is truth, whereas material varieties are false. But the Sharanath impersonalists do not even believe that the absolute truth of Brahman can be understood as the opposite of Maya or illusion. According to their vision, materialism is the only manifestation of the absolute truth. Okay, so there is another group of people who say that there is no Brahman. The absolute truth, there is no Brahman. They are saying that this world, this Maya, this material things that we are saying, this is the absolute truth. Factually, both the Kashira and Sharanath Mayavadis, as well as any other philosophers who have no knowledge of the spirit soul, are advocates of utter materialism. None of them have clear knowledge regarding the absolute or spiritual world.
Can't
Philosophers like the Haribol? Haribol? Oh, you're not able to hear me now?
Now it's okay. Now it's okay. It just went away for a few seconds.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. It's just so by having these ideas, this is nothing spiritual, is still covered materialism. Why? Because when we don't have the clear idea of the soul, of the absolute truth, and we keep claiming things based on our material mind, then we are still on the material platform. We are still, it's just mental speculation. It's just covered, packaged in different ways to make it sound nice. But if you open the package, that's what it is. I don't know if you all have seen that there's some things which are packaged really nicely, but inside, it's nothing valuable there. So philosophers like the Sharanath Mayavadis, who do not believe in the spiritual existence of the absolute truth, but consider material varieties to be everything, do not believe that there are two kinds of nature, inferior material and superior spiritual, as described in the Bhagavad Gita. Actually, neither the Varanasi nor Sharanath Mayavadis accept the principles of the Bhagavad Gita due to a poor fund of knowledge. So irrespective whether they are from Varanasi or whether they are from Sharanath, they both don't understand the Bhagavad Gita because they are not accepting Bhagavad Gita, their knowledge is not proper. Since these impersonalists who do not have perfect spiritual knowledge cannot understand the principles of Bhakti Yoga, they must be classified among the non-devotees who are against the Krishna consciousness movement. So now, so if we don't accept the principles of Bhagavad Gita, if we are not accepting Bhagavad Gita, what God is telling us, what his instructions are in Bhagavad Gita, if we are not accepting them, that means we don't have knowledge. And if we don't have knowledge, then we are not going to be able to understand bhakti. And then we are going to be called as non-devotees. Non-devotees. So we sometimes feel inconvenienced by the hindrances offered by these impersonalists, but we do not care about their so-called philosophy, for we are propagating our own philosophy as presented in the Bhagavad Gita as it is and getting successful results. So Srila Prabhupada is saying that, there are so many people who are speaking not based on Bhagavad Gita, and they are speaking out so many what do you say? They are putting so many hindrances in his work of spreading the word of God. But he's saying, anyway, I'm just following the principles of Bhagavad Gita, and that is what is the success. Theorizing as if devotional service was subject to their mental speculation, both kinds of Mayavadi impersonalists conclude that the subject matter of Bhakti Yoga is a creation of Maya, and that Krishna, devotional service, and the devotee are also Maya. So we may say that, or that devotional service, Bhakti is Maya, Krishna is Maya, and everything, all this is Maya. But this is only our mind. It's only our mind, because if we open the books of knowledge, if we open Bhagavad Gita, if we read the Vedas, the Shastras, everyone is saying that to understand God, to understand Krishna, that is the goal of human life, that he is God, that we are spirit souls, and that devotional service to him is the eternal occupation of every living entity. If we don't accept these things, and if we think otherwise, then we are just listening to our mind and nothing else. Therefore, as stated by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Mayavadi Krishna Aparadi, all the Mayavadis are offenders to Lord Krishna. Caitanya Caritamrita Adi-Lila, chapter 17, 1, text 129. It is not possible for them to understand the Krishna consciousness movement. Therefore, we do not value their philosophical conclusions. However, experts, such quarrelsome impersonalists are in putting forward their so-called logic, we defeat them in every respect and go forward with our Krishna consciousness movement. Their imaginative, mental speculation cannot deter the progress of the Krishna consciousness movement, which is completely spiritual and is never under the control of such Mayavadis. So Srila Prabhupada is saying, so some people may criticize the Krishna consciousness movement, but the Krishna consciousness movement is a spiritual movement because it is propagated by Lord Chaitanya himself, is based on the principles of Bhagavad Gita, based on the principles of the Vedas. And so it is spiritual. So no one can control it by just speaking by putting some hindrances in it, you know. So he's like, we are just going to continue our work of spreading the mission of love of God. Just spreading the mission of love of God to everyone. And Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Bhaktya mam abhijanati. Someone may argue about Krishna, but if they have not served Krishna, they will not be able to understand Krishna. That's the reason if we are preaching or telling people about Krishna, first we need to ask them to chant instead of trying to discuss Krishna's Vrindavan pastimes. Because if they have not served Krishna, then they will not be able to understand Krishna. But if we have served Krishna, then gradually, Krishna will reveal himself. And so that's the reason Kirtan is important, chanting is important. We don't need to argue. We don't need to argue with anyone, but just give them the holy name to chant. Is that okay?
Yeah.
And hear from Bhagavad Gita. The more we hear from Bhagavad Gita, we will understand Krishna's supreme position. Hear from Srimad Bhagavatam, the first 2 cantos, we'll understand Krishna's supreme position. Did anyone want to add anything or comment anything?
No, all clear.
We'll stop here for today. Thank you so much for listening and joining it. Chaitanya
Thank you.
Caritamrita ki jai, Shri Prabhupada ki jai. God bless.